Welcome to the Typical Sportsman podcast, where we just encourage living the lifestyle of a sportsman, a hunter, a fisherman, somebody who enjoys being in the wild. Guys, I am joined by a very special guest, Mr. Brian Anderson from G5 and Prime. Now, for those of you who have been following social media at all, you have seen Prime take the world by storm with the all-new Form, a game-changing bow that they have been working on for a decade. Guys, this bow right here is going to change the history of Prime moving forward, but also I believe that it's a game-changing bow for the archery industry as a whole. I'm here with Brian Anderson to get the full rundown of this bow, the specs, the design, what all went into making this bow. It's a bow I am very excited about. I spent so much time with that RVX right there last year, and I fell in love with it. And I am super excited about the Form. Guys, it's a bow that you're going to want to get your hands on, not only the Form, but the RVX 32 Plus and the RVX 34 Plus. Phenomenal offerings from Prime this year. I'm super stoked. I'm also excited to have Mr. Brian here to give us the rundown on this bow. Anytime a bow like this comes out, I love to hear the process that went into developing such a game-changing bow. That's what we're here to talk about. Guys, let me talk to my whitetail hunters real quick. If you live in the whitetail woods, then you understand scent is one of the biggest contributors to your success or your failures in the whitetail woods. Scent Lock, in my opinion, is absolutely hands down the best to be in the whitetail woods. Their activated carbon technology gives you the ability to have maximum odor absorption. It's a phenomenal product. Their BE1 toolkit is an entire toolkit built for bow hunters, by bow hunters. They've thought of everything in that toolkit to make you a better bow hunter. Guys, go check out Scent Lock, but let's dive in and hear about the new Prime Form.
For the true sportsman, it's more than a pastime. It's a way of life. Embrace the lifestyle of hunting, fishing, and the thrill of the wild. Live the life. Be typical.
All right, Brian Anderson, a familiar name in the industry, new to my podcast world. So if you have followed me over from Bear Archery, you know that I have been with them for going on 10 years now. And I shared in a recent episode on the Bear Archery podcast my vision and my direction for leaving and moving forward. So I would highly encourage you to jump back to that podcast. If you're new here to kind of wonder where I'm coming from and what I'm doing. That episode is titled Big Things and New Changes. So I would jump over to the Bear Archery podcast, listen to that, and then you'll be caught up on where we're at. But I am, as I launched the Typical Sportsman podcast, I put a lot of weight into the bow company I would be working with. And I am proud to say that I will be working with Prime. And I'll share that here in a minute as to why I chose Prime. But Brian, man, give us an introduction to yourself, dude.
Yeah. Brian Anderson, Prime bow hunting, G5 Outdoors, been with the company for way too long. I think going on 17 or 18 years now. Started just working at a shop when I was young. Dad was a professional shooter, so kind of been always into it. And then came over to here when I was young, just kind of started as just kind of the technical customer service guy and been able to grow into sales. I took over sales a couple of years ago, was doing that for a long time. And then I've kind of taken over and moved on the marketing side as the brand manager in the last year and a half. So everybody kind of knows me as, the guy at Prime or G5 just because I've been around for so long, but got my hands in a lot of little stuff when it's over here. So.
Absolutely, man. And one of the reasons that I chose Prime, let's just get into the heart of this. One of the reasons that I chose Prime is in one of our first phone calls. Well, let me just say this. In that episode where I announced leaving, we kind of talk about how everybody in this industry has a lot of good friends at other companies. It's not, people think that it's Prime versus PSE and PSE versus Hoyt. And we've got so many friends across the industry, and we all just kind of hang out together and are friends with one another. And so I had heard tell that the 2025 from Prime, which has now been released, would just change the game. It was a game-changing bow. One of my very best friends joined the Prime team, Mr. Caleb Sorrells. Casey from Prime actually developed and designed my new typical brand. And so, again, I had talked with people in the industry and just heard PJ from Lancaster. We got to chat a little bit, and we just kind of talked about the innovation that Prime was coming out with, and we were all excited about it. So that was one of the main reasons that Prime was on my list of companies I wanted to have a chat with, because I want to be with a company that's going to move the needle, that's going to really make a difference and change the game of archery. Which for me, going back to my time at Bear, the history that Bear Archery has and the history that Fred Bear has in the industry and changing the game. It was so surreal to work with a company that paved the way for so many other archery companies. However, Bear has, and this is not a negative statement by any means of the term, but Bear has fallen into kind of owning the realm of mid-level bows. And that's great. They do it and they do it well. However, I want to be with a company that's going to push the needle and innovate and change technology, and that is Prime. So with the 2025 bow, man, share with us before we share the details of the bow. This was a big development for you guys.
This is really big.
What goes into this, man?
Oh, it's 15 years in the making. We've always kind of pushed innovation over anything else when it comes to Prime. Started with the parallel cams, started with different materials that we used in the riser, just kind of really searching. We're metallurgists at heart. We work a lot with medical tools. We work with a lot of different, industries. As G5, I don't know if people know, G5 stands for Grace Manufacturing. Basically, there's 5 siblings, and that's what G5 stands for. Actually, it's biblical too. 5 stands for Grace. Grace stands for 5. But we've been kind of taking that idea of trying to push the boundaries year after year after year after year. And I'll be honest, the industry is a little stagnant when it comes to that stuff. The last couple of years, there have been some changes, and you can kind of see it in all the brands. But I don't think anybody's really pushed the boundaries on what can be next in the archery world. And that's what we've always been known for. Like I said, parallel cams, swerves in the risers. We went to center grip about 5 years ago. That's made a huge difference for us.
Oh my
holding
gosh.
the bow, being able to get on target faster, hold on target longer, going away from the parallel cam, going to the inline or the straight centered cam, basically where your cables and your string line up at full draw. Basically building a system that improves shootability, aiming, holding, long distance shooting. I mean, that's one thing a lot of guys don't realize when you buy a bow at a shop. 10 feet where the bow sounds and feels really well is awesome. But when it really gets out to 20, 30, 40, 50 yards, that's when a bow makes a difference. And that's where I think Prime's been able to step in and make a bow that really, benefits the shooter in multiple ways more than just making it a little bit quieter, So this year for 2025, we're introducing a bow called the Form. And the reason we're using the word form, Casey actually came up with this one, is we're changing the form of what a bow can be. We're actually integrating carbon and aluminum together, multiple materials. It's called AST, Advanced Structure Technology, and being able to actually put the right materials in the right places. I mean, bows are great. Aluminum's great. Carbon is great. The problem with one versus the other is they both have benefits in their own direction. Well, we've been able to kind of bring them together to make a platform that's like no other. The ability for future design and change is going to be much more frequent and being able to kind of happen more on the fly than most brands. I mean, most brands are stuck with a certain forging for a couple of years, which is good. It's great, kind of sets you in the state you want to head in. This is going to give us the opportunity to be able to kind of look at, innovation and change on a much faster process. So be able to basically, like I said, put the right materials in the right places to be able to have the most advanced structures in the spots that really need it.
So just so everybody knows, that was actually a large topic of discussion for me and PJ. Was a lot of dudes, and we promote it as influencers and people with a voice. Go to your shop, shoot every bow, whichever one you like the best. Absolutely. That's the one you buy. However, shooting it at 6 yards at a blank target with nothing on the bow doesn't give you a real picture for what that bow is. And I have bought bows in the past that I fall in love with at shooting it in the shop at 6 yards. And I'm like, dude, this is so quiet, so vibration free. And then I can't hit the broadside of a freaking barn at 40 yards. Like we've all been there. And it's something And a lot of shops just simply don't have a place for you to stretch it out and shoot when you're testing bows.
They're designed to sell a bow right then and there. They're
Right.
designed to let you get in the shop, have it feel the smoothness, the quietness, the vibration. And those are all very important features, but you really don't get the factor of what makes a bow shoot. And that's when you get it out to distance and see how it holds on target. I think most guys don't even think about aiming when they buy a bow until they buy it. They assume all bows are accurate. And they all are to a certain point. But we want a bow that, it's kind of I'm going to kind of throw some guys out there. We've all had a bow, or we all think of buying a bow. We want a bow that falls forward in the hand, right? Like we've all had that in our mind. Like, we want a bow that balances and it falls towards the target. So center grip for one. When you hold a prime bow and you shoot it, the bow sits there. It doesn't fall forward. It doesn't fall back. It's a balanced system that actually improves aiming, but it also improves the whole through cycle shot. So we look at those little things that make you a better shooter and necessarily just making you feel better while you're buying the bow.
And let me just say this about center grip, which this is my first year that I have shot a prime, and I have spent I can't even explain to you. This RVX 32 hanging right here, I have done everything to that bow you could possibly put it through. I spent 8 days in Idaho with that, and it was in soaking, pouring rain. It was in crazy brush country. It was in freezing cold. It was in super hot. That 1 week tested equipment in about every way that you could push equipment. And here's what I learned about center grip that a lot of people don't even think about. Just carrying it around the mountain, just going 15 miles in a day, like having it balance in your hand just when you're carrying it makes it so much more enjoyable trekking around a mountain. One thing that really impressed me about the RVX is the way that it lets down. A lot of people look at how smooth a bow draws, but then they don't think about, okay, it jumps out of my hand and I can't let it down smoothly. Man, I was at full draw on a big old bull, and that bull was staring straight at me, and I had to let down right after it turned, and I could just let it down as slow as you could possibly want to let down a bow. It just let off. It lets down so smoothly. That bow right there is phenomenal. So share with me the specs of the form.
Okay, so the form is going to be 34 inches. So we really kind of specialize in a little bit longer axle. And I'm going to call that out right off the bat. The sure reason is the center grip actually moves the center of the bow up almost 2 inches, 1.5 inches to 2 inches. That puts more of that height below your grip than it puts above it. So really a 34-inch bow feels like in a stand or in a blind, like a 32-inch bow. So it's really kind of falling in everybody's category. Just has a little bit longer on the bottom. So that does, kind of help with what we talk about. But 34 inches axle to axle, it's 4.1 pounds. So it's the lightest at its length. There's a couple other bows that are sitting right at 4 pounds at 33 inches. We're sitting there right at 34. You could pop the dampeners out and be pretty much right at 4 pounds. 6 inches of brace height, 6 1/8, somewhere right in there. 336 IBO, and we do have a performance mod that's going to get a couple more feet per second. That's going to come out here in the near future. What else are we looking at spec wise? So 34 inches axle to axle, 6 inch brace height, 340 IBO, 4 pounds. And we're putting all the new modern accessories on it. It has a Picatinny on the front to mount for Picatinny sight options. The integrated mount for integrated rests on the back. We're coming out with our own 1-piece and 2-piece quiver for this bow that's sub 7 ounces. So we're really looking at weight, but we're also looking at the full package coming together where you don't have to add a bunch of other accessories or weights onto it.
Yeah, and when I heard the direction that Prime was going, and I shared this with you on our very first phone call, I'm just stoked to be a part of something that, and listen, I recognize I play a very small role in it. I played a very small role in it at Bear Archery. However, I'm excited to promote a bow that is truly trying to move the needle in archery. Listen, archery is my life. Like I live and breathe archery and bow hunting. If you don't believe me, just ask my wife because all fall she doesn't really see me. I think she loves it for about 2 weeks, and then she's like, "All right, I need help." But anyways,
I'm right there with you, man.
Bow hunting changes like it is. It's what I live and breathe. And so a company that is working to not only make really good equipment for me, but working to move the sport that I love so much, man, why would I not want to be a part of that?
We appreciate that.
Now, just to share with you guys, here's the heart behind why I chose to really tie myself to Prime. Because like Brian shared, it's a single family owned operation, which is not true for many archery manufacturers.
Most of the industry is not tied to a family anymore.
Not tied to a family. Most are owned by giant umbrella conglomerates that people don't even recognize, owned by people that don't even hunt, don't even have a foot in the game, owned by umbrella companies that own 50 different companies in 50 different industries. But Prime is single family owned. And like Brian shared, they're Christian owned. They share my values. I mean, if you have followed me for any amount of time on the Bear Archery podcast, you know that I am a preacher. I'm a pastor of a church. And so my faith is very important to me. Those are the two. After Jesus Christ comes my family, and then bow hunting. And so Prime checks all those boxes for me. They're Christian owned. They share my values. They're family oriented. And then they're really working to move the sport of bow hunting and to innovate and help carry the sport of bow hunting into the future. And so that's the 100% of the reason why I tied myself to Prime. And I'm so excited. Again, I spent a lot of time with RVX and fell absolutely in love with that bow. I've had more confidence in that bow than I've ever had in another bow. Well, I'll tell you, 2013, I remember that bow like it was yesterday, was the Elite Energy 32. Up until this point, I would say that was the bow I was most confident in. Just, dude, if an elk stepped out at 90, I was just like, yeah, dude, I'll punch it in the heart. But like with this RVX, I can truly say that I have built so much faith in this bow. I shoot it so well. It balances so well. At any distance, I feel confident in shooting it. It's a phenomenal bow. It's quiet, smooth, fast, balances. I mean, what more do you want in a bow? And then the form comes along and you're like, well, crap. Okay. That changes my opinion, I guess. And full disclosure, I have not tried this bow out yet. I have not shot this bow. I am low down the list on priority for who gets a bow.
Oh, it's gone.
But I've got sitting over here on my counter. I wish I could pan the camera and show you. I told my wife, I'm like, well, this bow's coming and I'm going to be ready. So I've got my dialed proof sitting there ready to go on it. I've got my rest ready to go on it. I had a quiver lined up for it, but it sounds like you've got something even better for me.
We'll take care of that.
And so I've got my setup for the form sitting right here. So when it comes, it's ready to be bolted on and ready to shoot. So I truly am excited about what all is going on at Prime. And here's what I want to mention. You said 12 years you've been working on this design. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So we've been, I mean, the concept of carbon has been been a wheelhouse for us for about, I mean, Prime in general, 12 years, but we've been looking at carbon for almost 10. We've been looking at it. It's out there. It's what people want. It's the future of a lot of industries. But we looked at what truly makes a carbon bow, and we weren't very impressed with consistency. Like I said, we make medical tools, a lot of things like that. We make gun parts. We make a lot of stuff that's really high precision. Same thing with our broadheads. I mean, we've been, kind of number one in fixed and mechanicals now. We want very precision parts. And when we were looking at carbon, it just wasn't consistent. There was nothing consistent about a carbon riser. There's been some brands out there. PSC's done a really good job. Voigt's done some great stuff, but we wanted to take it to the next level. We weren't necessarily worried about having the lightest bow. We wanted the stiffest, strongest, most consistent bow that we could possibly get our hands on. So, Nate, our engineer, one of the Graces, he's been looking into this a long time, and he's been kind of flabbergasted that nothing's really advanced that much in carbon in the last 10 or 12 years. Like even, over the last couple of years, he went to a convention that was like, okay, this is the future of carbon, right? So he was all excited, like, let's take a look at it. And he got there, and it was basically kind of like a shadow graph or a projector that we all used when we were in high school and middle school, that they put the image on the board, and basically laying a grid on that, laying it down on whatever product so they could lay the carbon straighter. It was like, that's not anything technical. Yes, you're going a little bit straighter. Yes, you're putting a little bit more into it, but it really wasn't making it any more consistent, maybe a little bit stronger. It was just like, okay, it still wasn't where we wanted to be and what we could do. So when we started looking at precision carbon, it always came back to rods and tubes. Look at arrows. Arrows are around for a reason, because they're as straight as possibly they can do. So we looked at the best manufacturers and the best manufacturing processes, and you'll see it in our launch videos. We failed at this. We failed several times to get to the point we are now, and how we're bonding and how we're designing and how to use carbon the right way. Like if you put it off 1 or 2 degrees, you lose integrity in the carbon and the strength and the straightness. So we were looking at carbon that was less than 1 degree for straightness, not necessarily around like you do in the arrows, but actually vertically to make sure you have the perfect strength and the best stability in it. And then figuring out how do we bond it to aluminum? How do we bond two components that necessarily don't line up? If you look at any of the other bows out there, PSC is probably the best when it comes to the lack of aluminum, but all the carbon bows have some kind of aluminum in there to mount your rest, to mount your sight, to mount it to the limb pockets. And so we started thinking, why do we need to make a full carbon bow when those components are going to be aluminum or integrated in there? Or, some brands are trying to machine carbon. You just lose the integrity. Like the stock on an AR or 4M on an AR. Like as soon as you start cutting those holes in it for weight, yes, it looks cool. It takes the weight down, but you take the integrity down. But you don't necessarily need it for a forearm on a gun. Well, you need it for the strength when you're building the riser of a bow. So we started looking into it and going, all right, if we can get the right materials, right places, let's start figuring out. And then it was kind of, okay, we think we can build it. Now let's figure out how we're going to bond this. Let's figure out how longevity is going to last. Let's figure out what, salt and wind and cold weather. We've been doing some testing in house. We actually froze one down with to negative 70 below the other day with liquid nitrogen, and shot it and dry fired it with no failures whatsoever. Yeah, we had a little bit of, string derailment and things like that. Bows are going to do that, no matter what you do when you dry fire a bow. But we were worried about the riser and making sure it was going to hold up in the most extreme situations and over time. And we've been able to kind of bring that all together into one package that we think can really change the game when it comes to design.
Well, and I knew it was a game-changing bow. In my conversation with PJ, he said, yeah, I'm kind of curious because their Prime is flying out engineers to show me this bow. He said, nobody does that. Like nobody, it's usually just a video call or a slide deck of, information. He's like, nobody flies somebody out to show me the technology of a bow. He's like, so when they said that, I'm like, oh crap, this is a big launch. Like this is a game-changing bow. And it truly is. Like the way that you guys did this and the time that you put in, so many companies fall into the trap of like, we got to get something new and exciting out, and they throw something out, and it just wasn't ready.
Right.
It wasn't ready to be out to the public yet. But let me just say this too. A lot of people don't understand what goes into the development of a bow. And I remember when I first started working in this industry, and I met friends who were on the engineer teams and the design teams, and you hear what all goes into a bow, and they're like, yeah, I mean, we would make, 1/64th of an inch change or something, then have to redo it all and try it all again, and then go back and make a 1/32nd the other way. And, it's a year of an entire team of people working on this bow. People just think like, well, when are they going to come out with something new? Like, when are they going to come out? Well, this is hard. Like this is a lot of work. And so it's almost I never say a negative word about another bow. I just won't, because
There's
I understand
a lot of good product out there, man.
Well, that, and I also understand, like there's bows I simply don't like, but I also understand that, man, they had a team of people grinding over this for years to get this bow ready to launch. Who am I to sit here and say this bow is garbage? Like, who am I to sit back and belittle all of the time and effort those people put in to try and give me a really good bow? But in the same breath, just because I don't like it doesn't mean it ain't for somebody else. Just because I don't listen, I'll say the bow. I don't work for a said bow company anymore. I can say whatever the heck I want to. The Hoyt Nitram 30 was the bow that I shot in the shop. I worked for a bow shop, so I had access to every bow, shot all these bows, and I'm like, the Nitram 30, that's what I'm going with. I love the way it shot. I get it out to the range, and I hated that bow with everything inside of me. Could not shoot it, couldn't hit anything with it, super inconsistent, didn't balance well for me. I just, you get to 50 yards and your groups just go whoop, and I'm like, this bow is not for me. Again, the Nitram 30 was a great bow for a lot of people, was not for me. did not like the bow, couldn't shoot it well, went right back to shooting another bow. But that just wasn't for me. And that's okay. I still sold, again, Absolutely. I was a sales rep in the shop. I still sold a slew of Nitrums. I didn't tell people this bow is garbage. You need to shoot a different bow. Hey, if you're going to shoot it and you're going to shoot it well, go for it. So it's almost my pet peeve. And listen, there are already comments. I can just go ahead and tell you, there are already comments about how the form is not a good bow. It's not built to last. It's not blah, 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 blah. Guys, listen, this is a team of people that spent 12 plus years trying to develop this bow. In no other career, if you're an electrician, nobody walks in and watches you doing it and say, oh, that's not what I would do. That's not right. That's not great. Much less somebody who has no insight into what true electricianing is. And so we as the consumer, we can look at the bow, but we really have truly no engineering background. We have no design background. I couldn't tell you the first thing about designing and developing a bow. So why would I sit back and badmouth and bash another bow? That's just my pet peeve, man.
I agree. There's a lot of people, a lot of keyboard warriors out there that they want to be the first to say something. They want to be the first to judge. And I get it. Like we all have first impressions. And I'll be honest, the first time I seen this bow, I questioned it. Like that's something you'll see. Actually, you're going to see, you're already seeing it because we're going to be launching some kind of prequels and some small videos of guys that had the first bows and their first impressions. And every single one of them was like, I didn't know what to think. They didn't know what to think when they seen it. Nobody does. It's like nothing that's ever been out there. So I can understand where people judge, but before you judge and put your dead set on it, put it in your hand. Put everybody's bow in your hand. Like I ran a shop for 12 years prior to doing this side of it. And that was always my biggest thing is it took 10 more minutes. I mean, sometimes the bosses are like sell more product. But it was put a couple bows in your hand, shoot them all, figure out which one feels the best, and then start thinking, behind the scenes when it comes to, all right, what is Prime saying? What is Matthew saying? What is Elite saying? What is PSC saying? What is Bear saying? What are the things that they're boosting on those bows?
Right.
Find the feel and then start going, okay, what are the things that they're really focused on? And Prime's always been about accuracy and having a better shooting bow, a better accuracy bow. So we've been able to kind of do that where other bow brands have kind of focused on noise or vibration or speed. You said it earlier when you drew your RVX back, like the amount of how smooth it is and versus letting it down. Those were all factors to us. We're bow hunters at heart. We all know you're going to have to draw your bow in a situation you probably don't want to when you're spun around a tree or in a spot where an elk or something runs in really fast. You need to make that shot, or the time where you have to let it down or hold it. Like I always hear it. Like I was at hold for 3-4 minutes on an animal this year. I was legit on hold on my elk this year at 2+ minutes. Like I actually had to let it down and hold, lower down while she was standing there. So we look at factors that make us a better bow hunting bow. One is a better accurate bow at long distance. One's a smoother system. And we're not claiming to be the fastest bow. We'd rather have a little smoother bow to be able to have those both side factors than we are worried about another 4 or 5 feet per second. So, but we are looking at that stuff. I mean, it even took us a while to get the right, I don't want to say noise or vibration because we were low on those numbers, but when we were using 7000 series and we were using parallel cams, we had a different tone. So people would instantly grab a bow and go, oh man, that thing's loud, but it just sounded different. So it kind of scared people. When we did all the numbers, we did all the proof, we put it out there, and some people are like, wow, that's bullshit, Sorry about the language. They didn't even give us a chance because of that. And we've been able to kind of think, all right, there is some validity to this. So let's make sure that the customer is still getting what they want. So we started working on noise, we started working on vibration, but we always kept at heart that we want to have the best holding bow and the best shooting, most accurate bow. So, some things kind of go the wayside back and forth when it comes to that, but we're always going to have at heart to make sure you have a bow in your hand that's going to be the bow that, it's going to happen for you. When it happens, we want to be the bow that's going to give you the best benefit to make that shot.
You guys want to know 2 things I could care less about a bow? I could care less about how fast they are. Don't care IBO whatsoever. There's a reason I haven't asked you how fast it is. I don't care. My RVX was shooting a 515 grain arrow at 262, which is not blazing fast by any means. But here's what I can tell you is doing the math. I just shoot a heavy arrow as well. But doing the math, I mean, if you gain 6 feet per second, like that's 0.0004 seconds at a deer that's at 30 yards. So I could care how fast it is. I could also care less how good it shoots dots. I'm not a target archer. Don't claim to be, don't care to be. My buddy Caleb that you're friends with too, he watches me shoot and he's like, oh, well that on the paper. And I'm like, I don't care. Dude, I want to kill animals. I don't care how good a bow can shoot dots. I care about how well a bow can perform for me in a hunting scenario. That's what I care about. And so those are the type of things in my backyard that I practice. I turn sideways and try to draw a bow. I sit on my butt and try to draw a bow. I sit on my knees and try and draw a bow. I see how long I can hold it and still execute a good shot. I will say most people that say I held my bow back for 7.5 minutes. I'm like, no, you didn't. You absolutely didn't. And they're like, yes, I didn't. I'm like, I know it feels like a long time. But do you understand like 2 or 3 minutes is a very long time. Like, you know what I mean?
Very,
so,
very long.
But those are the things I care about because I'm a hunter. I want to kill stuff. I don't care to shoot dots. I don't care to shoot paper. I like to kill stuff. And so those are the things I care about in a bow. And Prime does hunting bows very well. Not just Prime, G5 as a whole does. Dude, check this out. I got to share this with you. My nephew calls me the other day. He was at my house one night and they're getting his first bow set up to go hunting. He's killed several deer with a gun, but ready to bow hunt. And so we're getting his bow set up. He's like, do you have any broadheads for me, Uncle Dylan? And I'm like, you know what? As a low pounded shooter, I would highly encourage you to shoot the Montec from G5. And so I give him his first pack of broadheads, which are G5 Montecs, and he blows through a Kansas stud. I got to come towards the camera.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Full pass through at 43 pounds with a G5 Montec. And that's just where you stop and go, okay, G5 is making products for people to hunt with. Like they're making products that work to kill stuff. And I would tell everybody, my wife shoots Montecs. They're a phenomenal broadhead for anybody, but especially for low pounded shooters.
Absolutely.
They just perform really well.
A lot of new shooters and a lot of guys that have been just shooting the Montec. Like that's how I became a G5 fan, is like running the shop and like, man, look at this new interesting broadhead. I mean, I was just young, and I was the young guy that liked to try everything. But man, I started playing with Montecs and I'm like, man, this broadhead just works, And then we came, I was still at the shop. The Striker came out, so even sharper version of the Montec. So we've been kind of kings of fixed blades for a long time, and we've been pretty proud of that. And then kind of developed into, the mechanicals over the last couple of years. But we design stuff for the quickest, most ethical kills. We're never going to be the broadhead company that's going to say, oh yeah, extinct. I'm not going to say that one. Shoot it wherever it's going to die. But we're making broadheads that are going to have a marginal, help you with a marginal shot too. Not every shot's perfect. But we want a product that's going to help you no matter what situation you're in.
Are you guys ever going to come out with maybe I shouldn't ask this, but are you guys ever going to come out with like a double bevel, single bevel, 2-blade broadhead?
You know what? I don't ever want to say the word no. We've looked into the single bevel versus, the double bevel, single bevel. So everything we have is a double bevel. And probably people are going to persecute me for saying this. You cannot get a single bevel broadhead as sharp as you can get a double bevel. When you're sharpening a broadhead, you're pushing the burr, which is the very tip of the blade, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And eventually it's going to break off crisp and leave a perfectly clean edge to, as much as you want, you can say. When you're only doing that with one direction, you're never going to have that back and forth to get that crisp edge. And to be honest, the little bit of spin that you're getting with a single bevel, is it really producing that much more? I mean, yes, it probably will open a single, a 2-blade broadhead. It will probably open that cut up a little bit going into the cavity. But I mean, is it that much? I mean, on the trad side, guys, yeah, it should probably help you a little bit. I mean, if you're worried about a little bit of that kind of stuff, I would say, like I said, I'll probably get persecuted for saying this. Shoot a mechanical. Shoot something that's going to open a giant hole. all the bows nowadays have really, 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 really good kinetic energy. I don't care what brand you are. If you're putting 60 pounds in, you're getting 60 pounds out of it. You're putting 70 pounds in, you're getting 70 pounds out of it. And 60 to 70, and if not higher than that, are going to kill every animal in North America, if not around the world. So
Yeah.
to say like to have a single bevel is the only option, I don't know. But I'm not saying it isn't something for the future. We've looked into two blades. I mean, we don't tend to just hop in a category to hop into a category. I mean, you can kind of tell we're a broadhead that we progress into a broadhead. So like with the mechanicals, we started with the Tekken that turned into the T3, that turned into dead meat, that turned into the mega meat. Like we've never just had a bunch of broadheads have a bunch of broadheads. You're not going to see 10 different category, broadheads in the category with us, which other brands do just to have more shelf space for, get in front of more customers. We would rather lose a little bit of that to make sure the product that we have hanging on the shelf is what we've proven and what we can, do. So, not saying no, but I'm not saying, anything yes on it right now. Like we work with some of the best blade manufacturers in the world on the mechanical side, the Montech sharpened in house. We really look at making sure we can get the best of the best of the best when it comes to it. And we've found that where we're at is where we want to be for right now.
I'll say this about the Mega Meat. It has the single best commercial ever for any company ever performed. And that's Mr. Kip Campbell. When he walks in covered, drenched in blood. And he's like, I was tracking a deer, and his wife's like, did you find it? And he's like, most of it. Yeah. I love that commercial. Mr. Kip Campbell does a phenomenal job.
Kip has free run to do his own commercials, and we love everything about it. Kip is a killer at heart. The dude loves to kill. That's why I think most guys relate with Kip. That's why we wanted to get with Kip. And he just he's a comical guy and likes to have a good time doing it. If you watch it, that's only one of many he's made for us, and they're all that same way. I mean, there's always blood, there's always gore, and that's the Mega Meat in a nutshell, So
yeah, no, he is he does things his own way. Back to the single bevel, double bevel argument. Mm-hmm. I heard one of my good friends. We were sitting around Remy Warren. We were sitting at a convention, and we had went up to like the staff lounge or whatever, and just kind of hanging out. And we started talking about single versus double bevel. And he shoots a double bevel with bleeders.
Okay.
And we were just talking about penetration versus this. And he said something that really resonated with me. He said, single bevel guys hang their hat on that it rotates through the animal, that it spins through the animal, that it has bone breaching ability. And I will say this, it does have bone breaching ability. However, through an animal, through the chest cavity of an animal, are you going to get a quarter of a turn, a half of a turn? I mean, of additional spin. But Remy just said this. He's like, okay, ask yourself this. Does it take more power and does it tax more energy to screw a screw into a piece of wood or to push a nail into a piece of wood? And I was like, oh, wow, there's a lot of truth to that. And he's like, so simplicity, he's like, if it takes that much more energy to screw a screw into a piece of wood than it takes to push a nail into a piece of wood, I have to, as a hunter, think, okay, well, if it's going to actually spin and create, a hole through my animal, then how much energy is that taxing from my arrow as opposed to a double bevel that's going to push through like a nail? And I was like, okay, like that.
It's a great explanation on it. Remy has done it all. The guy has killed more stuff than EHD, so he would be one I would listen to,
Yeah. And that's something that just really simply resonated with me. And to be honest, dude, when I built my wife her bow, it was 47 pounds, I believe. And I put some double bevel or some single bevels, put her some cutthroats on, which Tom Clum is a really good friend of mine. I love that guy to death who designed the cutthroats. However, she was not getting through animals. She was not penetrating through animals. And so I'm like, okay, this is not working. And so I put her on some Montex and she started blowing through animals. Because again, you just ask yourself, is it easier to push a nail in or to screw a screw in? And so if we're truly hanging our hat on that it screws itself in and that it creates a rotation through the animal, it's got to be taxing that energy from somewhere, i.e. your arrow and the velocity and the speed of that arrow. So that's where I hang my hat at, man. I don't know about anybody else, but that's just, I like to think about things simply because, well, I'm not smart. I'm a dumb redneck from Arkansas. I have to think simply. And so that's where I'm at, dude.
There's another factor to it, and it's kind of I don't know how to really. I do. I'm just going to come out and say it. So, not every shot's a perfect shot, and not every shot's a pass through. So, we promote the biggest entry holes that you can possibly get. An exit hole is very, very important for the sure reason, especially out of a tree stand or in the mountains. If you have an angled shot, you're going to have a lower hole, an exit hole, to produce more blood. So, here's the deal: is if you don't get that exit hole, now you have to have the blood fill up the cavity before it makes it out the hole. Is it going to make it out of a slot better or a hole better? So if you can produce a bigger hole, a 3-blade hole, and I'm not saying only, because I killed my elk with our T2 this year and it had a great big gash and hole. But if you can get that hole bigger on the entrance, you're going to have more blood to be able to find, track, marginal shots. And that's where like the mega meat, the dead meat, even the T2, we've designed them to open up going into the cavity. Like we want them opening up as soon as they hit the hide. There's some other broadheads that are in the mechanical side that are designed to get into the cavity before they open up. And that's great, but you're not going to have a great entrance hole. And we want to have the biggest entry hole possible. So the T3 into the mega meat, the dead meat, the Montec, they all produce a very large entrance hole. So that's one thing we've been able to hang our hats on. Like if you do hit that opposite shoulder, if you're not pushing a ton of kinetic energy, something happens, a deer takes a step while it runs and breaks your arrow, you're going to have that great entrance hole to be able to still produce blood on a quicker premise than, necessarily just a 2-blade.
That was the scenario you just painted is the 100% reason I unscrewed every single bevel and didn't shoot them anymore. I was shooting a recurve, but I shot a bear in Idaho with a single bevel. Now, bears notoriously don't bleed well. They got lots of fat. They got lots of hair to soak up blood. They don't bleed well. But this bear didn't bleed at all. And I didn't find the bear. And well, now that I look at it, it's like you said, one perfect slit in and out, one perfect slit. And I'm like, okay, that's not going to create a lot of blood flow. And so in my mind, I'm like, I have to have something to disrupt this perfect slit, be it a 3-blade, a 2-blade with bleeders, something to disrupt this perfect slit in this animal. Same state, Idaho, shot a bear this year. And it was a single bevel it was a double bevel with bleeders, and that bear spewed everywhere. I mean, actually my buddy who was tracking it comes back up covered in blood. And I'm like, so we found it? And he's like, no, And I'm like, you have blood all over you, dude. And he's like, that's how bad the blood trail was. And I'm like, wow, okay. Anyways, just spewed blood everywhere. I think you're right on the money with that. A perfect slit in any animal is not going to create the best blood flow. There has to be something to disrupt. Man, think about how easy a perfect slit can just, with all those layers of fat and skin, just get covered up and it's not going to bleed.
Absolutely. Even on just say a whitetail, like say you get a marginal shot on a whitetail and it has just a small slit. Say your arrow falls out. So now you just have this small slit in there. The arrow's not keeping the hole. Deer, especially big deer, want to get to a spot and bed up. They'll either put mud in it, they'll roll, grass, even lick the wound. If you have a spot that's small and they can, if it's laid down like this, it's easy to close a hole up like that and have it heal faster than having, a hole or even like a big oval, like a big 2-blade mechanic can do, or something with a bleeder like you're doing. Like they want to heal themselves. I mean, and they do it. There's a lot of big deer that are shot with great shots that somehow aren't found, or you see on camera the next day, you go 2 days, 3 days later, whatever it may be, and you see the hole on the side of it and go, how is that deer not dead? I don't think anybody will ever know. But if you have a small hole, it's going to be a better option for them, better for the animal to heal up than it is without. So, I mean, we're going to push it. I mean, that's why we've done great with marketing on the Mega Meat, but I would say 90% of the Mega Meat marketing is guys producing giant holes and showing their buddies going, dude, look at the hole in this animal. Or, just in being able to prove to their buddies, like, this is the next step when it comes to hunting. And I'm not knocking any 2-blades or fixed blade guys or whatever it may be, because we all did it and we still do. Like there's a couple guys in the office that just strictly love fixed blade broadheads, and I get it. It's just simplicity and it works, So just kind of to each their own. I'm never going to knock anybody, but we specialize in what we, 3 blades and big cuts. I mean, yeah, like we said, we did get back into T2 working with Dudley on that. And and he's proven to me, like, I questioned it, like, why are we getting back into 2 blades when we've done such a good job with 3 blades, and, he's proved to me that a 2 blade can do the job and done it well. Like I said, I shot my elk with a 2 blade this year, severe quartering to me, extreme entrance hole through the body back into the back hip. So I really didn't have an exit hole, but having that big front hole in the entrance hole, man, it was bleeding like crazy. Like it was incredible, so if you are going to shoot a 2 blade, go with the biggest one you possibly can, get yourself a bleeder set in it. Just give yourself a little bit more.
I asked Caleb not too long ago. I said, "Hey, have you shot anything with the T2 yet?" And he sends me back an animal with a hole that was like 9.5 inches big, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like crap, dude! Yeah, I'd say you shot it. Good Lord,
yeah."
Man, I honestly didn't think we were going down the Broadhead route this episode.
I didn't either, but I'm having fun with it. So.
That's what happens. Now, outside of the form, what all is G5 and Prime coming out with for 2025?
So we are still expanding the RVX line. So we've had such a good luck with the RevX into the RVX for the last 2 years. Like it's just a bow that continuously shoots. So we haven't upgraded the RVX series. So we still have a 32 and a 34. It's the RVX 32 plus, the RVX 34 plus. We've narrowed the pocket system down. You'll see it on the form and on the RVX. So we've been able to go a little bit narrower. So you have a little sleeker profile. And we've been able to kind of lighten up the riser and being able to continuously stiffen the riser. That's one thing we always want to do is have a stiffer riser than we did the year before. So design or whatever it may take to get to that point. So we have 2 RVXs. We've went to a rigid cable guard across the board to just kind of, we found that sweet spot of where we feel the cable guard needs to be on all the bows. So we've been, got rid of the flexing system there. Still using the wraparound grip with the aerogel underneath it. So no matter if it's carbon or aluminum, you're going to have a nice warm grip to the touch. Like I said, we are going to have a performance style mod to be able to kind of boost up speeds a little bit across the three in the lineup. But yeah, no, we're really excited. I mean, we still want those tried and true guys that just love an aluminum bow to have an option for them. So we'll have the 32 and the 34 in those categories. On the Broadhead side, we're really just kind of, we're finally bringing the T2 crossbow version out. There's a lot of guys that need a fast, high-speed crossbow broadhead. There's a couple out there. We've done a lot of testing. We don't necessarily believe what everybody's claiming. Either they're not going to open up very well on the entrance, or they're opening pre-deployment. We can even say that on some of our head. I mean, I don't recommend the Mega Meat on anything over 450 or above. There's a possibility for opening up. So we're working on a T2 that we feel could hit 500 plus feet per second, and I'm excited. I've been kind of playing with engineering over the last couple of weeks on that. And I think we've kind of finally got it there where we are confident to say, put it on any crossbow out there and be confident and go out there and shoot with it. So we are working on that one. That one will be coming out. We're working on a couple more things that probably won't come out for 25. It'll probably be 26 projects. That's about it on the archery side, with coming out with a form, new 2 quivers, finishing up the T2 project, redesigning the RVXs into, what they are now. I mean, that's the personal bow I've been shooting. There's so many guys internally, and then the guys that were getting out the door that were shooting the forms to practice, to kind of get our testing with. I wanted to be the guy like, hey, give me the aluminum bow. I've always been that guy. And man, it's pounded. Like I've traveled all over the country with it, from Idaho, with my first elk, to Ohio and Kansas. I haven't really connected on any whitetails yet, but shot a doe here and there. But man, it's just a bow that you can pick up and pound. If you put it down for a week, pick it up and you're good to go. So I'm really excited about those 2 bows. I mean, the form is, I think a lot of guys are going to get their eyes on the form, but I would definitely don't shake a stick at the 32 or the 34 RVX pluses. They're going to be shooter bows too.
Let's just let's touch on that grip for a minute, because I'm the guy. Yeah. I do not wear gloves, period. It could be 10 degrees, snowing. I'm not wearing gloves. And I really haven't got to push it. Kansas weather has sucked. I haven't got to push it in the cold weather yet.
I was down there.
Oh my gosh, dude, it's horrible. It's December. Well, right now it's November 21st, which should be my favorite time to hunt. And right now it's 52 degrees. So it's like this.
I was there on the 5th file just last week. Peak midweek, should have been good. Lockdown starting to kind of get over. I was in a t-shirt in the blind on November 15th. I've been in November 15th in Kansas, freezing night. you know what off. So it's
Rastafari
been a weird
ruling
year
their
for
names
sure.
off. Yeah, and that's what, like, dude. So I haven't got to really test it in super cold, but I've been in like 20 degrees, and it is astonishing when you grab that grip. You're like, it's not cold. Like, how is it not
No,
cold?
so aerogel is something special. It's developed by NASA. It is 99% air. The best insulation in the world is air. So Permalite jackets, things like that, fill jackets, they're lightweight, they're extremely warm. And that's the same material that we put underneath the grip with basically all the primes, through the RVX series, the RVX Plus, the Form, the RevX, they all had the aerogel grip. It is a super unique material that is lightweight, so we're able to slip it underneath the grip in a very small package. So if you ever take a grip off a prime bow and see the white stuff underneath it, it's not tape. Don't remove it. That's your aerogel. But it really is. I mean, if you kind of look at it online, you can find a video of basically a couple of guys taking Elon Musk's not a flamethrower and basically a half-inch sheet of this stuff and sitting there and putting their hands on the other side of it, a half-inch thick, and they can put a blowtorch, basically a flamethrower, right to it. It will insulate that much. It's incredible. It's the same stuff that NASA uses in satellites, inside spacesuits. I know I'm getting down the rabbit hole of space age materials, but it legit is space age materials. Like there's been a couple of hunting companies in the fabric material or soft goods that are starting to put it in their clothing. It's not cheap. It's very expensive material, but we believe aluminum is the best grip material. So we wanted to put that have the best materials there. So keep it warm. I'm the same way. I'm terrible at keeping gloves, let alone wearing gloves. I have like one Under Armour glove, and I think the other one's like an old Realtree glove. They don't even match. Like two of the fingers are cut off. Like I hate wearing them, but I have them. But like you don't need it. You can grab this bow at 30 below, or you can grab this bow at 70, and it basically feels the same.
Yeah, and it really is like you grab it and you're like, holy crap. Like, and that was one of the first things I noticed about the Prime was the grip, and I fell in love with the grip. And so, Brian, man, let me just say this. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here. I
You're
am,
good.
first off, good job to
Thank
you
you.
and everybody at Prime. You can tell that you guys put in the work, you put in the time, and the consumer is benefiting from it. And so, really good job on this launch. I am so excited about it. However, I'm also just excited about this new endeavor. I'm excited to tie myself to Prime. I'm excited to work with you guys. Again, I have spent so much time with the RVX and just absolutely, I lost camera. That's fine. And just absolutely fallen in love with the RVX. So good job to Prime. You guys have done it and done it really well. And I'm just excited to be a very small part of it. And so, guys, go check out the forum. Go check out the RVX 32 Plus, the RVX 34 Plus. You are going to want to shoot them. Find you a dealer, get your hands on them, shoot them, spend some time with them. It's going to be worth it. Brian, thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate your time. I appreciate everything that Prime does and everything you guys stand for. And again, just it's an honor to be able to work with you guys. So,
Dylan, it's an honor to work with you, man. You've been around a long time. You know what's going on. We appreciate you. We appreciate your listeners. We know not everybody's going to take every word we have to say, but at least if we get the opportunity to get in front of some people and let them go out there and shoot it and check it out, we just appreciate that. We're excited about the future of the direction we're going with Prime, the people we're working with. It's like I said, I've been here a long time for a reason. The people are good. The product is good. It's been a blessing.
well, and just hearing about, when Caleb told me he was going to Prime and hearing the way he talked about the company, it was like, man, this is someone I want to align myself with. He was just sharing with me like family is first, and you don't see turnover at Prime. Like you don't see like
No,
people love the company, people love working there, people love the family and what they stand for and what they do. And I'm just like, man, that is, and he did tell me, he's like, man, and they align with your values more so than maybe anybody else. And so that was 100% of the reason, man. And I am so stoked about what you guys are coming out with, and that you guys are moving the needle and really pushing to see change in archery. So keep doing what you're doing, man. Tell the whole team there, good job on a great launch. You guys kick your feet up and enjoy it because you deserve it.
we appreciate it, man. We really, really do. So we're excited about the future, and it's looking bright.
Guys, thank you so much for listening. You guys have a fantastic week.